Welcome back to A Slice of News, where I cut you off a slice of news. Now that ICE agents are in the airports, they may be there to stay. That's the message coming from Trump Border Czar Tom Homan. As you recall, those agents were initially deployed to those airports to supplement the large amount of TSA agents who had quit or wouldn't show up to work because they weren't being paid. They had missed their first full paycheck, and many simply were refusing to work without pay. This was resulting in lines for travelers that were multiple hours long at security. So as the Easter holiday neared and peak travel was about to begin, and funding for the Department of Homeland Security was stuck, unresolved by Congress, the administration decided that at least temporary solution was to send ICE agents into the airports. But obviously the understanding was that once the issues with the funding for TSA and TSA agents finally getting paid again was resolved, they would be withdrawn since their need there would have been fulfilled. But when asked if they would be reassigned away from the airports once the funding issue was resolved, Tom Homan only said, "We'll see," when all he had to say was something along the lines of, "Sure, of course, ICE will be pulled out of the airports and they will no longer be necessary there." But the fact his response to that question was a non-committal one raises some concern. ICE, by its very nature, is an intimidation tool, a tool the administration has used for both suppression and control. In many ways, the administration's personal police force is the last thing the American citizens would want is to have them permanently deployed in the nation's airports. How genuinely effective and necessary TSA actually has been in a post 9/11 world may be slightly debatable, but at the very least, people understood the way they worked and how they functioned. If nothing else, they provided the illusion of safety while flying. But understandably, the presence of these ICE agents in the airports makes some people feel less safe, not more. TSA may have been pushing the narrative that they were protecting the American people from foreign threat, but with ICE agents, they've made it seem as if the American people are the threat. And given that perception, if the ICE agents do remain after funding for TSA is restored, it begs the question how many people are going to just decide they don't want to fly anymore if they're going to be made to feel threatened simply by getting on a flight. Whether or not deploying ICE agents to airports at all was the right or wrong decision, at the very least it was understood that it would be a very temporary one. And any discomfort their presence there would provide would be only until certain conditions were met, and then they would be back out. But Tom Homan's refusal to commit to taking them back out once that happens really makes you wonder what the plan really was for putting them there in the first place. Some theorize it's one step towards deploying them to polling places in the upcoming midterm elections. Once you normalize having them around at the airports, it will be normal to have them lots of places, including where people go to vote. And they can say it's just a public safety thing, just like when we sent them to the airports. And then people might be more likely to allow it. But many rightly see the idea of ICE agents at polling places as blatant voter intimidation. And in a midterm where the GOP has everything to lose, it stands to reason they would pull out every stop to ensure that they don't. So if ICE agents at the airports is the first step towards that, many are understandably pretty wary of it. Just one more entry in the ongoing fascist playbook. And I can't say I don't really get where they're coming from. It really does feel like the administration is saying, now that they're there, why have them leave? And if we can have them in airports, why not other places too? Tom Homan has said that the ICE agents will remain in the airports until TSA agents that were off of work return, but also has said that many of the TSA agents that have left work are not going to come back. So it sounds like he has them there until a thing happens that he is also saying is probably not going to happen, which means that they will be there essentially indefinitely. But simply put, ICE doesn't belong in places like the airports or polling places of this country. While the American people gave up a lot of freedom for the illusion of security after 9/11 when they imposed the TSA, at least there you could say they served a purpose and were at least trained to do their job. These ICE agents do not seem to serve any real purpose and are barely trained, if at all. So, what actually useful function they have while deployed there at the airports seems to be questionable at best. While it is true that some have reported that lines have decreased compared to before ICE agents were sent into the airports, many are reporting that the lines have not improved at all. Some still standing in lines that go as long as 4 hours. So if the ICE deployment is not solving the problem they were supposedly sent in to solve, then why are they remaining there at all? And why won't Tom Homan give a straight answer as to when they plan to take the ICE agents back out of the airports again? When he was asked when ICE would leave the airports, he said, "We'll see." I know from experience what "we'll see." That means I don't want to answer you, but I can't stay silent, so I'm going to give you an answer that doesn't say anything. Because that's exactly what that answer says. Absolutely nothing. It's as much of a non-answer as you can get. But if you read between the lines, there may be something there. Following 9/11, the American people were made to feel that being afraid was normal when he went to fly. Terrorism could be around any corner, and often seemed to be. Having your body scanned just to get on a plane became normalized, became just the price you pay for the safety of air travel. Metal detectors and x-raying your bag were no longer enough. We had to have more invasive security measures just to make sure that everyone could feel safe getting on the plane and flying to their destination. Many don't even bat an eye at being told to put their arms up and letting the scanner scan their body so they could proceed through the security line to get to their flight. But that comfort with that invasion of privacy didn't come all at once. It took time. Leaving the ICE agents in the airports may be a push for something similar. It's once again trying to make a state of fear feel normal. The safety, in large quotes, the TSA was supposed to provide was supposed to make us less afraid. But now they're saying, oh, time to be afraid again, and that fear should become the new normal. And that's not even getting into how much money is being wasted having those ICE agents deployed to all these airports and basically stand around doing nothing most of the time. It seems the party of fiscal conservatism has no problem wasting money if it's in service of their ultimate goals. Sending the ICE agents to the airports is solving a problem that the Republican Party itself created. There were massive shortages of TSA agents, both not showing up to work or straight up quitting the agency, because the Republicans could not agree on a way to fund the department and force those TSA employees into a position where they had no choice to either quit entirely or just not show up to a job they were no longer being paid to do. So instead of quickly trying to find a way to correct this payment issue and get the department funded again, they just send in ICE as a stopgap measure so that they can just drag it out even longer, seeming to say that they may not be able to find Homeland Security money, but they can find money for ICE, which is exactly what has kept the funding from being passed in the first place. Democrats wanted a way to fund Department of Homeland Security without funding ICE, and Republicans refused every time they would put forward a spending compromise that did not include ICE funding when funding Department of Homeland Security. Maybe in addition to just intimidating flyers at the airport, these seemingly permanent ICE deployments are to prove not only the efficacy of ICE, but also making them seem necessary. Much how the TSA and I guess the entirety of the Department of Homeland Security was sold to the American people a few decades ago. But the presence of ICE agents should not be normalized. It should not just be a given that they're going to be around every corner and that we should just expect them to be around indefinitely. The American people should not be made to feel intimidated and then to be made feel that that intimidation should just be a normal thing. But leaving the ICE agents at these airports until I don't know when is undoubtedly a step in that direction. Is it possible Tom Homan gave such a vague answer because he just doesn't know the answer and just didn't want to be pinned down on something he would then have to backtrack on later? Possibly, but I really am leaning more towards the idea that he didn't give a definitive answer as to when they were going to be pulled out because there is no plan to pull them out at any fixed date or time. And just leaving them at the airports that way is a part of a larger plan that involves sending them to polling locations or areas where they can commit voter intimidation while not calling it voter intimidation and just making it a part of normal life and public safety. The American people shouldn't have to tolerate ICE agents present all over. Not in the polling places, not in the public streets, not in the airports, not anywhere. And the seeming push to normalize those things cannot stand. We are not a nation that should be made to live in fear. Not of foreign terrorists, not of domestic thugs, none of them. And despite what Tom Homan says, or doesn't say, I hope very much that we'll soon see the removal of those ICE agents from the airports, and them not being around can become the new normal, instead of the authoritarian overreach they are desperately trying to make it be. Alright guys, that'll be it for this episode of A Slice of News. I've been your host, Mr. Slice, and until next time when I cut you off another slice of news. And don't forget to rate and review the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find it.